Hey friends, welcome back. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Courtney. Today I'm going to be showing you my eyeshadow palette collection. Small caveat, I don't have an average size collection because I am a beauty blogger, so that means that I hold on to things that I might otherwise give away. Although I have recently purged a bunch of palettes and given them away, so maybe it's not as bad as I think. So anyway, the first palette that I want to show you, I haven't even worn yet, haven't even swatched yet, and it's the Linda Hallberg Enchanted Secrets palette. This is the duochrome palette that she released because I thought it looked really cool. So hopefully soon I'll actually have a chance to play with this and review it because I bought it. It was pretty pricey and I don't know, I think because I've been looking at Linda Hallberg tutorials for years on Pinterest and on Instagram that I was like, I should pick this up. Next, I'm gonna run through these really fast, but I have like a million of the little Urban Decay quads. Now some of these I bought, some of these are PR samples, but I basically just use them and have them randomly filled. I don't think I've organized these in a while. So they have a bunch of different things in them. And I think they all have different patterns. So like this one. Usually these came with like one eyeshadow, like a neutral. Oh, this one's really pretty. All of the gold rim shadows you see are from my Urban Decay Wizard of Oz, like the good and the bad palette, so that's why they look like that. This is another of the little quads. These are two of the split shades from the Wizard of Oz. This was my first build your own palette that I bought. And right now I have it set up with basically a bunch of silver shades, silver grays, and I think that one's like a greenish gray. This was the Wizard of Oz Glinda palette, and this was the Theodora palette. So I have both of these. This one's actually empty right now because, like I said, I don't have the colors actually in the palette. I have just two random purples in here. I promised you it gets more exciting. So I'm going to continue to work through my Urban Decay collection. I have the Full Spectrum palette, which was the rainbow palette that came out last year. This is the Vice palette. This might actually be Vice 1. I'm not even sure. So you can see the colors. Another one of the Vice palettes. This is the one that was like influenced by Miami. Super bright and gaudy. Oh, this is the Vice Limited palette. Like, it's super insanely bright on the outside, but actually pretty tame on the inside. This is the Vice 2 palette. I love the packaging in this one. I love this sort of like smoky marble swirl. And I really loved Betrayal and Voodoo, the two purple shades, like right here in this palette. This is the Alice in Wonderland palette. This palette is so bulky. Like, it's basically a display piece. Let me see if I can... So you open it up. And I am a huge Alice in Wonderland fan, so I was really excited by that. You can see the butterfly inside. It's a really cool collector's piece. The palette pulls out of the bottom here. You can see the colors. This is the Shattered Face Case. It's actually a cute little palette for travel. It has blushes in it and a highlighter. The Anarchy Face Case. It's interesting, this one has more cool tone neutrals and then sort of bright blushes. This is the Naked 2 Basics palette. I really didn't care for this palette very much. I may actually try using it again sometime soon, but I just didn't feel like the colors looked very flattering on me. The Naked on the Run palette, which a lot of my friends love for work travel, just because apparently it has like all of the perfect shades that you would ever need. Not for me, but other people think so. This is the 15th Anniversary palette. I love this palette. I think I've used this palette the most of my colorful palettes. It was one of the first ones that had the color Omen, and it had a bunch of other shades that I loved, like Deep End and Evidence. It's just super freaking gorgeous. This is the Spectrum palette that came in very similar packaging and even had similar shades. Another Vice palette. This is the Vice Reloaded. I really like the purple sparkly jewel in this one, but the rest of it's kind of boring. All right, so this is the Vice palette that I possibly loved the most with the packaging because it has like this oil slick shattered effect. It's probably a tie between this one and the purple smoky one. Has a nice range of colors too. Naked 3. This is the sort of pinky one, which I like this, but I kind of wish that there were more mattes in it. The Pulp Fiction palette. I actually kind of feel like this was the best of the neutral palettes between the Naked Basics 1, the Naked 2 Basics, and this palette, because you have like the best range of shades in my opinion. But the packaging is bigger than the little tiny packaging. So, okay, so I've bought like 8 of these build your own palettes. I have one that's not filled yet. This one is made up of a bunch of like grays and purples. I'm constantly reorganizing how I have these all the time. This one has like some neutrals and duochromes. This one has a lot of moon dusts. This one has the colors that I was using to swatch against the Kristen Leanne palette. This has a lot of moon dusts. This has some favorite purples and teals. I have Naked Smoky, which is basically kind of like cool tones and warm tones mixed together. I know this wasn't very popular, but I like some of the shades in this palette a lot. The Gwen Stefani palette. This is another palette that I think was kind of a sleeper hit because it had a lot of really good neutrals in it and a few pops of color. So I felt like it was mostly for people who were afraid of color, but there are a couple shades in it that I really like Punk, and I really liked Pop, and I think Blondie was really, really popular because that's why they released it as a single. Not an eyeshadow palette, but the Urban Decay Gwen Stefani blush palette. Absolutely love this because I love all of the Urban Decay blushes. So I kind of wish they would do more palettes like this, but as far as I know, this is the only one they've ever released. I have the Troublemaker palette, which I really like. I need to get around to reviewing it. It's got a lot of cool, cute shades. I feel like this reminds a lot of people of the Viseart Golden Hour palette. The After Dark palette, which is basically all duochromes. The Distortion palette, which a lot of people hated, but again, I thought was fun. I like the fact that it has the top transformative rose and then all the rest of the colors. But I wish this pink had more pigmentation or was a little bit deeper. I just feel like it's too cotton candy-ish. The Heavy Metals palette, which has the worst god-awful layout I've ever seen, but I love the colors and the formula. I hope that the purples and the black in this come out as singles because I'll absolutely buy them. Naked Heat. This one surprised me because I actually found it was very wearable. I don't like orange, but I can do peach and I can do red. So it's a palette that I can wear most of the colors and I think they look flattering on me. When people talk about eyeshadow palette pairing, the two palettes that always spring to mind for me are the Urban Decay Naked Ultimate Basics palette, which I love, and I use this palette all the time because it's pretty much my go-to neutrals palette. And the Urban Decay Electric palette, which this is like, you know, the best bright palette that Urban Decay put out. Super fun. Although I guess the Kristen Leanne palette's pretty great too. There's the Moondust palette. Again, another palette I loved, but a lot of people didn't like. I basically only see this as a companion palette. It needs to go on top of other colors. So it works with the Electric palette. It works with the Naked Ultimate Basics. It works with the Kristen Leanne palette. I really liked the Basquiat palettes. Even the neutral palette grew on me because I've had no problems putting together looks with this, and I wouldn't normally think that I'd be able to make this like orangey brown color work, but I've been able to. I really like it because it has the dark gray and the dark blue, and then these two colors up here work really well in my skin tone. So surprised that I love this palette. I was not surprised in the slightest that I loved the Tenet palette. The other palette was a Gold Griot palette. This one was the Tenet palette and has these beautiful colors right here. The dark blue, the turquoise, and the lime green are my favorites. That's what I love about it, those three colors. The rest of the palette, whatever, but those three colors I want and love. The new Kristen Leanne palette, which is the Kaleidoscope palette. This palette drives people crazy because of the layout. I feel like the layout looks really chaotic. I really hated it when I saw it online. Seeing it in person, it's not as bad, but it still bugs me that they're all different sizes and they all contain different amounts of product, and I think that's what bugs me the most. I really wish they all contained the same amount of product. That would make me less like twitchy. And then this is the Daydream palette, which is the neutrals palette from the Kristen Leanne collection. And I like it surprisingly well. I find that I use Lucy, Daydream, and 1212 the most. I also have Naked Basics 1 somewhere around here, but I never touch it. That's actually, I mean, what I have is actually my second or third because I've repurchased it at least once and maybe twice because I hit pan on the shade Walk of Shame, which used to be my base shade, which I would use all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to Tarte. The next palette that I have is probably the first palette I ever bought by Tarte, and it's the Aqua Lilies for Tarte palette. So it's this really pretty summery palette. It's got like a really nice turquoise in it. It has this really unique looking like yellow that has a pink shift. It's got a great highlighter. I like the blush. The bronzer is okay, but you know, I'm not really much of a bronzer person, but I really just liked the palette and the colors in it, and so I've kept it. You know, there's a scarcity of cool tone palettes on the market, so when this palette came out, it was like it was the Double Duty Beauty Sultry Star Power Palette. I bought it because it's basically cool tones and a cool tone blush, and I've used it for travel, and it's an okay little neutrals palette. I have the Swamp Queen palette, which was the Graveyard Girl collaboration. It's okay. I actually decided after reviewing this palette and the Tarteist palette back to back that I'm not really a fan of the Tarte eyeshadow formula. This is the Tarteist palette. I do think that this is probably the most colorful and fun palette that Tarte has put out there aside from their unicorn palette, but I didn't buy the unicorn palette because that particular eyeshadow formula does not work for me. I couldn't get that formula to stay on my eyes without creasing and coming off. Like, it didn't matter what primer I used, that formula wouldn't stick around. I basically have held on to this palette just because of Graveyard Girl, and I've held on to this palette for travel, and I've held on to this palette just for sentimental sake. Like, all of my Urban Decay stuff I hang on to because I'm really into Urban Decay. They're like my favorite brand, but some other stuff I've like, most of my other stuff from Tarte I've just stashed, but I've held on to these for. Next up is Kat Von D. So this is the original Shade and Light palette, which I really do like. I particularly love Kat Von D's formula because I find it easy for me to work with, and it's easy for me to blend out. This is the Shade and Light Glimmer. Oh no, this is the contour. Okay, so somewhere in my stash of palettes is the Shade and Light Glimmer palette, which I did not care for because it just was sort of sparkly and boring. And I love sparkly shadows, but I don't love sparkly browns, and they just don't look good on me, so I skipped that. So I did not like that palette. Then we have the Metal Matte palette. I love this palette. I'm so glad I bought this palette because it has all of these awesome mattes and all of these awesome Metal Crush shadows. And while I do feel like this palette is ridiculously large, it's a pain in the ass to travel with because of its size, I really love the colors and think that they make the large size, you know, well worth it. I've decluttered a lot of my other older Kat Von D palettes, like I can't remember the name of the butterfly palette that I had, but I still have Interstellar, which was kind of like grays and purples and browns, which is kind of cool toned. I held on to, I don't remember what this palette was called. Maybe it's Metamorphosis palette, but I found this one extremely disappointing because I wanted it to have like these beautiful colors that you see on the lid, but instead you just kind of get like these boring shades. So I've held on to it because it's her palette and I really like the artwork, but that's it. Then I have a bunch of the little Shade and Light minis. This is the Fawn palette. I actually need to review this. I haven't even swatched or reviewed this one yet, which is kind of embarrassing. Put it over there in my pile of shit I need to swatch. I have the Rust palette, which I never wear. I have the Plum palette, which I really like. This one I've actually worn a lot. And I have the Smoke palette, which I love the most because I like all the grays. Last but not least, I have the Pastel Goth, which I absolutely love. This is probably my favorite, even over the Metal Matte, just because all of these shades are great. Because I have hooded eyes, I really like to use mattes in my crease, and basically if I mix any of these colors with white, I can create like the perfect crease color for me. So I love this palette, think it's awesome, wish it was permanent. It makes me sad that it's not. And I hope that Kat Von D will release more cool palettes like this because I think it's awesome. All right, so I have 3 Viseart palettes. This is the Cool Mattes palette. This one is the Bridal Satins palette. And this is the Bright Editorial palette. I use the Bright Editorial palette the most of those 3 just because the other 2 are kind of just for me. I don't really like Viseart shimmers. I kind of think that they're boring. They're too subtle, but I really like their mattes. I think their mattes are great. I knew my Shade and Light Glimmer was around here somewhere. Haven't seen it. I reviewed it on my blog. Didn't like it. All right, next up is Saucebox. So this is the Creme de la Creme palette. And I believe this has long since been discontinued. It was kind of cool toned, so I bought it. Forbidden Fruit, long since discontinued, but I bought it because it had like the pinks and purples and red. I thought it'd be really cute. The Mermaid palette, Mermaid Life. This palette is actually really awesome and it's still available. Yeah, the packaging is really big and clunky, but you can depot it and put it in something else if you hate the packaging. The Saucebox Art Nouveau palette. I really love this one. This is an all vegan palette. So basically, yes, you can make a vegan red, you can make a vegan purple. Great palette. really cute. I really like the Saucebox girl too, the little girl that you see in all the palettes. The Temptation palette, which is a bunch of brights. The Saucebox Etude palette. This is their most popular palette. I think it's been sold out a bunch. And then they had a collaboration palette, which was the Battle Ash and Saucebox palette. I bought this basically because it was cute and had purple packaging. I liked a couple of the colors inside of it. The lime green, the turquoise, the sort of transition-y color down here. The purple is okay, but not great because it really was more of like a, I want to be purple, but I'm kind of brown color. I have the Juvia's Place Masquerade palette, and I haven't ever touched this palette because I had such a horrible time trying to get a hold of it. It pissed me off. Haven't played with it. I should. Now, I also bought the Juvia's Place, the Douce palette. Love this palette. I've been playing with it a bunch. Mostly, I like to use the color Tarte, which is this like iridescent shade right here. I also like the pink here and this sort of like light transition color. I don't think I own a lot of Too Faced anymore. I was just looking to see. I have the Chocolate Bonbons, which was the mostly cool toned of the Chocolate Bar series palettes. And I have the Just Peachy Mouts palette that I bought. Oh, and I knew I had a palette I forgot to show you from Kat Von D, the Alchemist palette. I like that one a lot. All right, I'm gonna start getting more random with my palettes. So I have this LA Girl Neons palette, never swatched it. I bought it to review, haven't reviewed it yet, but it looked like it would be fun. I bought the Dose of Colors Desi palette. I think it's Desi and Katie or something. Some sort of collaboration palette. Haven't worn it, thought it looked cute. It's gonna go in my pile of crap I need to review. I have several Sigma palettes. This is Nightlife, and I've never touched it. I bought it because it had some purples in it. This is Fall Softly. I bought it, I guess, because it had a bunch of light colors that I thought would be good transition shades in my skin tone. And this is Brilliant and Spellbinding. Haven't touched this one either. I've had these three palettes sitting here forever. I should really get off my ass and review them. This is the Sigma Wildflower palette. I did review this. I absolutely love it because it has this badass purple in it. If Sigma can do a purple right, man, I'm telling you. But this is like a eye and cheek palette. Really like it. So I'm pretty sure I only have one ColourPop palette, and that's the ColourPop She palette. And it's like all of these really pretty reds and like kind of purples and stuff and like corals. And it has some duochromes. It's a really cute little palette. So around the time that I bought my Morphe Kathleen Lights collaboration palette, I also bought this little Morphe Drama Mama palette, which is a cool tone black gray palette. I destashed my Kathleen Lights Morphe palette because I didn't like something that Kathleen Lights did. She said something very inappropriate, and it just, I don't know, kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So that's why I haven't really bought any of her collaborations that have come out since. And I don't really feel like Morphe is cruelty-free. Haven't tossed this yet, but I kind of feel like I should. I just was hanging on to it because it's a cool tone palette, and I don't feel like I have a lot of those. At one point in time, I bought one of the Oddest Beauty palettes to try it out to see what I would think of it. And I believe it was this one, which is like their Ocean palette. I fell in love with it. So then I bought all the rest of their palettes. I have this one, which is this is the Heather Mauve palette. This is their Forest Green palette. This is their Smoky Gray palette. Soft Sand. Warm Sable Brown. I think this was their Everything Makeup, like the first holiday palette they put out. And I hated that they put cream products in with powders because that drives me fucking crazy. And they did the same thing again with this fall palette from last year, but I love the colors. I really like these, but I hardly ever reach for them. I think I'm probably going to try and depot the little trios because I think I would actually get more use out of them if I depotted them. So I love Sugarpill, so I did at one point own all of their little quads like this. I've depotted some of these, as you can tell. I bought the Feline Fancy. I actually reviewed this. It's super cute. You can now get these as singles. Same with the Edward Scissorhands palette. I bought this because I love the movie Edward Scissorhands, so does my husband. And this was actually filmed not too far from where I live. So I bought their Pro palette, and I have regrets because I really, really hate this packaging. I would rather have a magnetic palette like the other magnetic palettes that I have than have this format where I have to use a pin to get it out. It just drives me crazy. So I have regrets that I bought this stupidly large palette for that reason, but I don't have any regrets about Sugarpill eyeshadows because they're awesome. So NYX is pretty hit or miss for me. I bought the water palette and I love it. It's actually my favorite between the water, wind, and air. I reviewed it on my blog. Wind is really good too. It's just, I think it's the weakest of the three. I also have the Perfect Filter palette in Gloomy Days, which this one's a pretty good palette. It's got some subtle duochromes. It's cool tone. I think it's really, really flattering on me. I love it. I've got two Colored Rain palettes. One is the Berry Cute, which is this teeny tiny one here, which I adore. And I also bought the Queen of Hearts, which is this palette right here. And I've swatched it, I haven't reviewed it. I've worn it a couple times. I'm just kind of, I mean, it's really pretty. It's got some really great colors. It's got good payoff, but I'm just kind of about the color selection in it. I've got one Deck of Scarlet palette. This is their purple palette that they released. Again, I really, really hate palettes that do creams. These are cream products over here. But these colors were okay because I like purple. So I bought the Beauty Killer palette when it first came out before I knew that Jeffree was a horrible person. And I like the colors in it. They're not perfect, but I had a lot of fun wearing them for a while. I especially like that the transition color was named Courtney since I'm Courtney too. My husband actually bought me the Androgyny palette, but I've never swatched it and I haven't worn it because, you know, I've like touched a couple of the colors to match it up to Silk Naturals because they did some colors that were similar, but that's about it. I haven't worn it because of the fact that I have a problem with him, and yeah, he made an apology, but I've been watching him to see if he's changed his behavior, and so far I haven't seen that, you know, he's really had any significant change in his behavior, so I don't feel comfortable promoting him or mentioning him on my channel or my blog. So yeah, I think he makes good products, but I don't want to talk about him. I have a ton of Z palettes filled with singles. These are all Saucebox singles. I don't actually think these singles are available anymore because I think they got rid of them because they're reformulating everything. I have the Dose of Colors Marvelous Mauves, which is this palette right here. It's okay. I did do a review on it. I know it's on my blog. I can't remember if I did a video, but I felt like the colors were similar to the Kat Von D Plum Quad, but not exactly the same. So the eyeshadow formula is okay and everything. It's just they're really muted. I guess this counts as a palette because it's like a whole face palette. It's this Kevin Aquan palette that I bought, and it has like highlighter and sculptor, and I guess this stuff works for your brows and your eyes. So I figured I'd include that in here. I actually have this really awesome purple palette from Marc Jacobs, and my friend Kylie gave me this to me, so I really need to wear it sometime soon. It's just super pretty. I think it is called The Tease. I have one of these big NARS palettes, which too bad NARS is no longer cruelty-free. I have a shit ton of NARS eyeshadows that I don't know if I'm going to give them away or what I'm going to do with them because they've just kind of been sitting in my collection along with my NARS blushes, kind of in limbo. Oh, I forgot. When I went to the NYX store, I put together a NYX eyeshadow single palette. I should review and swatch this at some time too. I have this super cute little Eden Minerals eyeshadow quad. It's shattered. I really probably should repress the bottom left brown corner that's shattered because it doesn't look very pretty. I have this Galani quad, which I really like because it's like purple, or sorry, there's a light purple and then all of these gray tones. I really love gray tones. Oh, I have this cute little Glamour Doll Eyes pressed eyeshadow palette, and every time I think of decluttering it, I just can't do it because I really love this color right here, which is called Vanilla Unicorn, and this purpley color right here, which is called a Feline Fatale. So it keeps like avoiding the cut whenever I go to declutter things. I have this teeny tiny cute little Smashbox palette. It's like their little transforming palette, which, yeah, I've swatched once. That's it. Never reviewed. It's going back in that pile of, oh shit, I should swatch. I bought this Notoriously Morbid Calling the Corners palette, and I'm not really that impressed with it, so I'm probably going to declutter it. It's just, I don't know. The colors don't really speak to me. I bought it because I was like, oh look, pretty shiny pressed eyeshadows and they're indie. I have this Hard Candy palette because I was asked to do some more drugstore looks and I've never touched it, but that's what it's here for. I have my Kylie, the purple palette, which I love. I'm actually wearing some of the colors in it today. I'm wearing the like light gray taupe up here and the deep cool gray down here. I love this palette. I find it really useful. So yeah, I'm hoping I'm gonna see a bunch of purple palettes come out for 2018 since the color of the year is ultraviolet. I even changed my hair color to purple. Well, I've got purple and blue. I actually have like my stylist calls this galaxy hair because I have black hair, like black roots going into like this sort of red tone purple here, going down into a blue tone purple, and then the ends are kind of blue. So yeah, I love my hair right now. I think it looks so fucking awesome. Okay, I have this 100% pure mermaid palette, which is really cute. It's a duochrome palette. So these are all duochrome eyeshadows, and this is a duochrome blush, and this is a duochrome highlighter. Really cute palette. I think it's a great way to get somebody to start liking duochromes since it's pretty flexible, or since it's pretty easy to wear. So these are my Itsy palettes. They make brights like this palette, and then they also make colors like this. This is the Coffee Break with Danny collaboration, and then I bought these other colors that are up here just to give the rest of their shadows a try. Their shadows are actually pretty good, and I think their little magnetic palettes are pretty cute. This is the Pure My Little Pony palette. This was a PR sample that was sent to me. And I actually feel like it's a good starter palette for people who want to get into color because yes, it does have a bunch of neutrals, but it has like a lot of really nice bright pops of color. So I thought it was a very cute little palette. Oh, and this is the Itsy Glambition highlighter palette that my friend Jess from Love for Lacquer released. So if you haven't seen that, I have this reviewed on my blog. This is the Carly Bible, this is the BH Cosmetics Carly Bible palette. It's a neutrals palette. I bought it to review because people were asking me to review something from BH Cosmetics. I actually think it's a pretty good palette. I really like these two highlighter colors down here. And what I like about this palette also is that it has basically its rows of like peachy pink stuff and kind of like mauvey plums and then like your classic neutral brown shades. So for a neutral palette, it actually felt like it had a lot going on. And I bought this other BH Cosmetics palette, but I haven't done anything with it just because it was cute and had purples. This is the Flower Beauty Cool Natural palette. I've actually done a tutorial with this on my blog, and I can't remember if I reviewed it, but I really like it. It's actually really good for a drugstore eyeshadow. I bought this. This is the Bare Minerals Little Smoky palette, and I've swatched it. Haven't got my review up yet. Hopefully I'll have it up sometime soon, but I just thought this would be good for travel, so I picked it up. And this is Bare Minerals, the Sexy Neutrals, which I've swatched this. I've worn it a couple times. Hopefully I'll have a review Hopefully I'll have a review up for it soon. Okay, so this is a really super cute palette. It's no longer available. It was a limited edition Jouer, like mermaid summer palette. I can't remember what it was called exactly, but it has these 4 colors, and from here to here we have Dreamer, Splash, Pink Pearl, and Coconut. And they were kind of like duochrome colors, so I bought it because I love duochromes and I'm a sucker for them. I like the formula pretty well. They're a little bit like, they're really glittery, so I feel like you have to use a sticky base with them. These are actually my Makeup Geek contour shades, for like the 4 light pale shades. They're in with my eyeshadows for some reason. This is the Violet Voss Drenched Metals palette. I love this palette. I actually think it's really easy to blend. The colors are very, very buildable. I've used it on a lot of my friends and they looked really great with it. So it's one of those palettes that I sit there and go, I don't understand why Violet Voss discontinued it because it's beautiful. It has a lot of pops of color. It has several boring colors for all those people who just want to wear boring neutrals. Sorry, I'm a little biased. But I didn't understand why she got rid of this palette because I thought it was great. So I have to mention my Lunatic Labs contour palette because it's multi-purpose, meaning you can use it as eyeshadow, as blush, to fill in your brows, and for contouring. So it's a really fucking cool palette. It has awesome packaging. Deserves to be here. This is the Stila Matte and Metals palette. I bought this because I thought it'd be really cute. It's got like a lot of different sort of rose gold tones, and they say it has like pewter tones too. I don't really feel like it has a lot of pewter tones, but it does have like these nice rose gold colors. Oh, you might be interested in this. This is the Fiona Styles Light Medium Sculpting palette. I know it's not an eyeshadow palette, but it's still in my stash, and it's supposed to be great for contouring on pale skin like mine. It's in with my pile of my Fiona Styles eyeshadows. I have this quad, which is like the Oceanus quad, and there some of the colors in here are duochromes. They're really pretty. And this is the electric quad. I bought it because it was like the purple quad. It's not as purple as I'd hoped. This is the Illamasqua Fatale palette. I've actually never worn it. I bought it because I was like, oh, Femme Fatale sounds cute. I'm trying to get better about that and not impulse buy as much. This is the NARS Narcissus Smoky Eye palette trio thing that I haven't gotten rid of. I've gotten rid of a lot of my other palettes that I had, but not this trio. This is a really cute pressed palette from Notoriously Morbid called When the Wolfbane Blooms. I love these three colors. I would not disdash this. This is my Natasha Denona palette. No, really, it's the purple blue palette. I hate this white packaging because just literally anything gets on it and stains it. It has a ton of gorgeous colors, which, you know, I've tried to use, but I don't use it as often as I would like. It does have a lot of pretty duochromes. The biggest problem I run into with this palette is I don't feel like there are enough mattes in here for transition shades, so I really need to pull from other palettes to work with it. And I need to try to use it more because this was probably the most expensive impulse buy I've ever had because this was like $239. Super expensive. Can't believe I did that. Ugh. So I think these two palettes that I'm going to show you next are actually all of my Anastasia Beverly Hills singles. I have a shit ton of their singles that I've bought. I keep meaning to re-swatch them and review them. This is my other, this is a Glam Tech palette. I love Glam Tech. These are custom made palettes. I won't buy a Z palette anymore because the owner is a douche, but Glam Tech is pretty awesome. These are the other colors that I have that are all Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow singles. I used to have like every single eyeshadow palette released that they had, but then I got rid of them. And so I think all I have left is the Modern Renaissance. Hate the packaging because it attracts dirt. Love the colors. And I have the Subculture palette, which was the one that had all the fiasco this year. I actually only bought this because of a sponsored post that I was doing to compare it to some other eyeshadows. I have a bunch of basically eyeshadow palettes I put together that are eyeshadow singles from Makeup Geek. So this is basically like my purple palette. This is a mixture of duochromes and mattes, I think. Yeah. These are mostly mattes with a couple like shimmery shades. I think some of them are the foil finish. More Makeup Geek, and this is actually a Saucebox eyeshadow that needs to go back in its palette. More of my Makeup Geek. More Makeup Geek, and this poor little guy shattered and would not repress properly. It was one of the foiled formula. Even more Makeup Geek. Now, this is another one of my Glam Tech palettes. It's custom made, of course, because I have the purple poodle on it. And it actually has a mix of, oh my God, why are you trying to escape? It has a mix of my favorite purples and grays and duochromes from Makeup Geek. These are Suva Beauty, these three mattes, which I really like. These three colors are JD, what is it, JD Glow? Yeah, JD Glow. And this one might be a ColourPop, but I don't, yeah, this is a ColourPop shade. But all the rest of this is Makeup Geek. This palette actually has mostly ColourPop, with a little bit of NARS. And the 6 over here on this side are Nabla, which I bought these to review, but haven't had a chance to review them yet or swatch them. I've worn them a couple times. I really, really like the Nabla shadows. They're good. Very, very good. Another cute little custom palette. And I think this is actually a Makeup Geek blush and a ColourPop eyeshadow. Yeah. Makeup Geek Puppy Love blush and Wait For It from ColourPop. Although with the way ColourPop is, the color has probably been discontinued at this point because they discontinue stuff all the time. This is my Nabla Christmas Mauves palette. So when I bought the other 6 Nabla, I bought this palette, and these colors are awesome. Another one of my little Glam Tech palettes. And this has Makeup Geek and Sugarpill in it. The little ones are Sugarpill, the big ones are Makeup Geek. Oh, and these two shades right here are from my Lunatic Contour palette because I took them out since I like to use them for travel. But wait, there's more. I have the Makeup Geek in the Nude palette, which with this palette, I really only like the color here, So Pale. I like this color here, Buffed. And then I kind of like this little color down here, which is Grandstand. This is the Makeup Geek Manny MUA palette. And I love this one. I know that I know that Mars doesn't have the best formula, but I love it because it's like a true red. And the Makeup Geek lineup really needs a the Makeup Geek lineup really needs a true red. They have, the closest they have is Cherry Cola, which is too brown. The closest they have is Cherry Cola, which is too brown for my taste. I love having the pressed version of Insomnia. And what is it? Peaches and Cream is really good. So this is a good palette for me. I like it. So I have the Haze Stack from Milk Cosmetics, which I just recently bought. Haven't had a chance to review, haven't even had a chance really to play with. But if you haven't seen it, it's a gorgeous looking stack of metallics. If I can hold it up so you can see them. They look so pretty. I have the Gunmetal stack, which is one of my favorite stacks. And the matte for this one is in my palette, which I'll show you in a second. But these are the 3 shimmery shades from the Gunmetal stack. This is the Neon stack, which these are cute, but I actually hardly ever wear their neon colors. This is the Rust stack, which has all of these like boring browns. Although I want to try this antique, it's kind of peachy shade at some point. It's cream. Oh, this is the deep brown from the Rust stack Rot. Enigma, which is from the Dark Matter stack. This is Unseen. Like I kind of have my colors mixed up because I have a bunch of them in that palette, which I'm going to show you in a second. This is Promiscuous, the Awesome Purple from Lovesick, the Burgundy from Lovesick, Amelia, the Duochrome from Lovesick. And then inside this palette, which has the most god-awful packaging, I've got my She's a Party stack, which I love, 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 and that's on the left side, or that's on this side. And then the colors over here are like a mix from Dark Matter and Lovesick, so it's like the gray and the black, and the assimilated from the Gunmetal stack. And this color, what are you from? It's like so entrenched in here, doesn't want to come out. This is Blur, so this is from, I think that's from the Dark Matter stack. So I love my melt colors. I'm really, really not a fan of the palette at all, and I probably should just suck it up and take them out of the palette since I don't like using it. It's another waste of money. So out of all of my eyeshadows, I probably use the Makeup Geek Duochromes, the Sugarpill Mattes, the Urban Decay colors, the Melt colors, and the Kat Von D colors the most. Like I have a lot of eyeshadows. I have a ton of loose eyeshadows too, but out of the pressed, that's probably what I use the most. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed seeing my massive eyeshadow palette collection. I had fun showing it to you, although I was a little nervous because I feel like there's so much here. Please be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and share. I love it when you share my videos and it really helps me out here on YouTube, so thank you very much. And if you haven't already, you should click that little subscribe button down below and I'll see you in my next video.